So let's talk about some of the neat things we can do with the line quilting function. So if you go to the home screen of the QBOT app and then select line quilting, and then let's look at what the screen can do. Basically, we have the two choices. One is open path and closed path. And as we've discussed before, we can choose points, leave the points open to create zigzag lines, or close them to create boundaries. It's great for doing stitch in the ditch, and it's pretty straightforward. We can have the ability to save the pattern like we do in pattern quilting. So once you've chosen the boundary, or chosen the where you want to quilt, by choosing those nodes and setting those points, you can then save that in case you wanted to use it again. Well, we really want to use that function to do something very neat. Say you have an art quilt or even a regular quilt. I always say art quilts because they provide some of the most challenging things to quilt. But say it's a traditional quilt and a traditional block, and you want to do some stippling or a fill or a crosshatch in that area. Well, in QBOT v3, we don't have the ability to just select points and then say fill yet, but we do have the ability to work with the existing software programs that are out there to make this happen in a really, really easy way. Now, before v3, you would have to measure the quilt top very precisely, redraw that in your software, then create the fill, and then try to get it to fit into the area. Well, with v3, because things move, and if you measure something on a quilt on the floor or on a table and then put it on a frame, things move around, the results wouldn't have been that great. But with v3, we can take a lot of those steps out of the equation. We have the quilt mounted up on the frame, and we'll use the line quilting feature and the save pattern function to then define our area and define that boundary that we can then take into software and do a fill. And the whole process maybe takes 5-6 minutes. So let's get started with that. I've got something on the frame over here, which is just a weird scallop looking kind of thing, but it shows what you might encounter, I should say. It shows you something you might encounter when quilting, or something maybe you would have avoided in the past because you would have no idea how to quilt that with QBOT. Well, now it's pretty simple. It's still a two-step process, but it's a lot easier, and the results are really kind of cool. So let's give it a go. I have line quilting chosen already, and I'm going to keep my closed path option chosen, because when we take things back into the software, to be able to fill that, it has to be a closed path. So we're going to keep that closed, and then the pattern we generate here on the QBOT v3 on the tablet will automatically be a closed path and be very easy to fill. So I'm going to just start selecting points around my boundary. I'm going to make a pretty good definition of this boundary. I don't want it to be too choppy, so it might take a little bit of time to do this, but I'm going to select points around the boundary to define it. And the more, this is a very gradual shape, the more I guess the word that comes to mind is intense, but that's not the word. The sharper the curves, if you have a block or an area on the quilt that has a very sharp curve and lots of changes in direction, you want to make these points as close as possible, and keep the you want to keep the distance between the points you choose pretty close. Here, I'm just choosing maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch between each point. And I'm making sure to get each point where it's an inflection point or a sharp change. We want to get those captured as well, so that we don't sand off those corners. We want to keep that keep it well defined. So we just go around our area here. Define it pretty well. And we'll come back close to the beginning. And then we'll say done. So there's my area. Now, I'm not going to quilt anything out. This is just selecting the area. So I'm going to say Save Pattern, and I'm going to give it a name. And let's give it a name like Scallop and underscore fill underscore boundary. So just a name like that. And it's saved that. Now we're done at this point on the tablet for this first step. But let's go see to make sure that it is in a folder that we can go get it again, okay? So we're going to go back and go back again and then go to Design Management and see, let's see our saved patterns. It's a folder at the bottom. Saved patterns, and I can see scallop fill boundary in the upper left. So I've got it there. And I'm also going to, let's shut down the app here. And I'm going to see in my ES File Explorer, I'm going to navigate to that file so I can see where it is on my tablet. So I go to my ES File Explorer, and on your tablet you may have something called File Manager or some other name for this. I use this particular navigation tool. It's pretty common. It has millions of downloads on the Google Play Store. It's really stable and it does a great job, and I can see all my network devices as well, so it's pretty cool. So I'm going to click that and then I'm going to go to Home, and on my tablet it says SD card 0, so I click that, and then I go to QBOT and click that, then QBOT Designs, and then Saved Patterns, and I can click that. And you can see I've got that scallop fill boundary on my tablet. So now I'm going to disconnect my tablet right now. For these videos, just so you know behind the scenes, this is a little thing that goes on here. I have my tablet hooked up and we're recording the direct output of the tablet video. That's how I can switch between screens and show you these different things. So here I am in Art and Stitch, and I'm opening the file, that scallop fill boundary file. I make sure Convert to Outlines is checked, and I select and I say Open. And here is the boundary that we just recorded. I select it, and then I do an auto stipple as a fill. It's a quick way to fill something. And I'm going to change the spacing from 3 to 5 just to make it not so tight. And I click Apply. And then after that, all I need to do is save it. So I choose Save As. And I'm going to change the file name from Scallop Fill Boundary to Scallop Fill. And I'm going to then change the Save As file type from Art and Stitch to QBOT HPGL. And I'm saving it in the same location on that drive, and we'll pull that into the tablet and quilt it out. Alright, so we took that boundary that we created using the QBOT and Line Quilting. We saved the perimeter as its own file, which we pulled into Art and Stitch as a boundary. Then we made a fill called Scallop Fill, and we saved it to our network drive. And now we're going to pull that back into the tablet. So I'm going to do that right now. So if you look at my tablet screen here, I'm in ES File Explorer, and that's something you can download from the Google Play Store. Your tablet may have a file management system as well, or a file management app that you can use as well. There is my scallopfill.plt. I'm going to press and hold it until I see the little boxes show up. And you can see that the checkbox in the lower right corner of the icon is checked. Then at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to say Copy. I'll press Copy. And then I come back locally to my local folder, look at my Home, see the SD card 0. And I'm going to put that file in download. I'm just going to put that right there, paste it in my downloads folder. Now I'm going to go back to my home screen and start the QBOT app. And once it boots up, I'm going to go to Design Management and then import that file. So I go to Design Management and Import Designs, Download. It's a very easy folder to find. I don't want to import the whole folder. I just want to open the folder, and then I see that scallop fill PLT. I select it and then say Import. And it imports that, and you can see it right there. And now I'm going to take a look at that file. I'm going to zoom in, see what it looks like. And it looks pretty good. And I can see that it's 14 inches wide by 5.66 inches high. You can see that in the lower right. And it looks all good to me. So I'm going to go back and then back again and go into pattern quilting, and we're going to quilt that thing out. All right, so now we have to choose the boundary of our scallop here, and I'm going to choose it similar. It doesn't have to be exact to what I've done before, but I'm going to choose a similar boundary to what I've chosen before. I'm just going to select points around the scallop, or this shape. I just call it a scallop shape. And I am choosing right on the line here, and I suppose I should choose a little bit inside the line, but we'll see. I make sure that I capture my corners accurately. And I'm back to the beginning, and I'll say done there. And then we have our shape. So I'm going to now pull in the design. I'm going to go to all my designs and use the search function and say scallop. And I can see there at the bottom it's a scallop fill. So I'm going to select that. And there it is. Now, what I want to do here is I'm going to modify it so that everything looks good and it fills that space nicely. And this can take a little bit of patience here. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go down to 95%. And that's pretty good. I need to nudge it over a little bit. I'm not too worried where I've crossed, where the pattern crosses over a line segment. But if I see that the pattern is touching a node, then I know that I really have to be careful, because that will touch the boundary that I've chosen. I'm just going to rotate it a bit. Just a bit, nudge it down. And there we go. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to press done and then move to start, and we'll quilt this thing out. Now you can see how powerful a tool this line function or this line quilting routine or function within QBOT v3 is. Being able to select your border, save it as a pattern which you can import into software, then use that as the boundary for doing a fill, and then being able to quilt it back out on your quilt is really, really powerful and cool. Now, there's a couple of places on this where I should have, when I chose my boundary for the actual quilting, I should have used a little bit better or more common sense approach. I chose the boundary as the same boundary that I used to do the fill. Now, when you're actually quilting, you need to give yourself a little bit of barrier, a little buffer around the perimeter, because when you're doing fills especially, you're going to start pulling in material, and there's one spot on here, or maybe just one spot on here, where it got really close to the boundary that I chose, and it's because as we're stitching and filling it relatively densely, it's pulling that in a little bit. So when you're quilting out fills, especially, and the denser the fill, the more you have to be aware of this. You want to be careful to choose your area slightly inside your seams, and it'll be a much better outcome in the end. But enjoy this feature. It's a really powerful tool, and until next time, happy quilting.